Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we are digging into a mystery that, not too long ago, had the entire nation talking and, well, sniffing the air. Yup, that's the one. If you were anywhere in Singapore recently, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That distinct, kind of burnt smell that just seemed to appear out of nowhere and hang around. So where on earth did it come from? And why did it feel like our noses were telling us one thing, while the official reports were telling us something else entirely? All right, let's get into it. So picture this. It's February 13th. You look outside and you see this kind of hazy skyline. But the real story? It was that smell, that persistent burning odor. It wasn't like the super thick, choking haze we sometimes get, right? But you absolutely could not ignore it. You just knew something was burning somewhere. Okay, but here's where things get really weird. This is the start of the mystery. You do what we all do, you check the official air quality, the PSI. And what does it say? On the very days the smell was the worst, the 24-hour PSI was sitting comfortably in the moderate range. Our noses are screaming, danger, something's burning, but the numbers are kind of shrugging, saying, it's all right. So what was actually going on? So this brings us to our first big question, that burning smell. This is all about that strange disconnect, when what you're smelling and what you're reading just don't seem to line up. So February 13th, that was really the main event. All of a sudden, reports were flooding in from everywhere about this smell. And of course, that sparked a lot of concern and honestly, just a ton of confusion. Everyone was asking the same simple question: where is this coming from?
And to find that source, well, we've got to look north. The clues start pointing across the border, and you really have to just follow the wind.
Okay, so this timeline is so important to understanding the whole picture. It actually starts back in late January. A huge peatland fire kicks off in eastern Johor. We're talking the size of 140 football fields. Then, boom, February 13th, the whole island of Singapore smells it. And then, to top it all off, on March 3rd, there's a massive factory fire in Pasir Gudang, which is basically our next-door neighbor. You can really start to see the pieces falling into place, can't you? And here it is. Look at this. This is the smoking gun, literally. This was the view from Punggol on March 3rd. That is not a rain cloud, folks. That is a gigantic plume of smoke from that factory fire in Pasir Gudang, and it is heading straight for Singapore. You just can't argue with visual evidence like that. And it wasn't just something you could see from far away. People on the ground felt it. As one Punggol resident put it, the thick smoke and unpleasant smell crossed the shore within a short span of time. That really brings it home, doesn't it? It's not just a picture, it was people's reality. All right, so we're pretty sure we know where the smoke was coming from, but that still doesn't answer our big question. Why did the air smell so bad if the PSI was basically fine? Now, this is where we get into the science of it all. This is the aha moment that cracks the whole case. The key to this whole thing is a term called complex gas mixtures. Sounds fancy, but here's the deal. When you burn stuff like peatlands and vegetation, exactly what was happening in those Johor fires, you don't just get visible smoke particles. You get this whole cocktail of different gases. And here's the kicker. Our noses are super, super sensitive to these gases. We can smell them even when there's only a tiny, tiny amount in the air.
This chart breaks it down perfectly. Think about it this way. Your nose? It's like a high-tech gas detector. It's sniffing out those gaseous compounds. That's the actual smell of the smoke. But the PSI? That's measuring something different. It's mainly counting the tiny little particles in the air, what we call PM 2.5. So it's basically measuring the thickness of the haze, not the smell. They're just two totally different things.
And there you have it. That's the solution. The air can smell absolutely terrible because of those gases, while at the same time, the PSI can stay in the good to moderate range because there aren't enough of those tiny particles to trip the sensors. Mystery solved. It wasn't a paradox at all. It was just science. Okay, so we've solved the science mystery, but that doesn't mean there weren't real-world consequences. So now let's talk about the actual impact this had on people and how Singapore's official response kicked into gear. Yeah, even though the PSI numbers were moderate, people were definitely feeling it. I mean, doctors all over Singapore started seeing a real spike in patients coming in with things like nagging coughs and scratchy throats. It's such a good reminder that just because the air isn't technically in the unhealthy zone, it can still make you feel pretty lousy. So how does Singapore get ready for something like this? Well, it's not just one or two people. We're talking about a Haze Task Force made up of 28 different government agencies. 28. That's a serious coordinated effort.
And this task force isn't just waiting around. They are ready to roll. They're led by the NEA, and their job is to get public health warnings out, make sure there's a good supply of N95 masks, and even get air purifiers out to places like schools and nursing homes to protect the most vulnerable. It really shows that there's a solid plan in place for when things get bad.
Okay, that brings us to our last section. The smell might be gone now, but what's the outlook? Are we really in the clear? This is the question on everybody's mind, right? The air smells okay again, so we're good? Is it over? Well, unfortunately, it's not quite that simple. Meteorologically speaking, the whole region is in the dry phase of the northeast monsoon. That means we could see long stretches without rain, which, you guessed it, increases the risk of fires. And if the winds turn against us, all that smoke and that smell could head right back our way. So that really leaves us with this one big lingering question. The smell is gone, for now. We've figured out the why, we know the country is prepared, but with weather patterns getting more extreme and regional challenges continuing, is this just our new normal? Is this something we're all just going to have to get used to? Definitely something to think about.